Have you ever told yourself, I just don't think I could hire a virtual assistant because they're not in my practice, they're not going to understand because they're simply not in the building. Or maybe you thought, I just can't trust anyone who's not physically here. And if that's you, this video is going to change how you think about hiring and how you think about structuring your front desk. In this video, I'm going to cover three major things. Number one, why most practice owners think they can't trust a virtual assistant and why that's not true. Second, I'm going to uncover the real reason why you need to have, honestly, an in person admin and potentially a virtual assistant, and why sometimes your in person staff may actually not make a lot of sense for where your practice is. And then, thirdly, we're going to talk about what actually creates trust and understanding and success at the front desk, whether somebody's actually in the building or not. And this is the exact framework we've used to hire, train, and place over 100 virtual assistants and other front desk staff all over the country. And it's how we sort through hundreds and thousands of applications every single month and how we actually ensure success for those that we actually place. Now, the first big thing is so many people just think they can't trust a virtual assistant. They think my business is too complicated and they're just not going to understand it. We offer too many services. And I would say this is especially true for, practices that are like functional medicine or chiropractic that has multiple offerings, or, even cash physical therapy practices that have multiple offerings. So many people will just assume because their practice is complicated that a virtual admin can't actually get it or actually understand it. And really, when somebody says, I just don't, you know, trust, or I just don't think a virtual assistant can get it, they don't know my practice, they don't know how things work. And the reality is most of this comes back to you guys being afraid of relinquishing control for your practice. You're unable to, it's hard for you to see or think that you could trust somebody to be able to handle your first phone calls or be able to handle patient interactions. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a logical feeling. But most of this stuff actually comes back to being able to give your front desk concrete information about what your practice actually does. And so, whether you have an in person admin or a virtual assistant, if you can't document what it is you do in your practice, or what it's like to actually go through your office, if you can't articulate that and your front desk can't articulate it, no one's going to convert regardless of the fact. And so for many of you, you don't see how you can implement that with a virtual assistant because you don't have clear and documented processes. And so really you're kind of gambling regardless of who you hire, whether virtual or in person, because the stuff isn't clearly defined. And so the way that you can build trust for a virtual assistant and actually be able to offload it is you have to document a lot of your processes in your practice. What's your new patient phone call procedure? What do follow-up techniques look like after that? And then from there, if you are talking with them, if somebody cancels that appointment, what should your virtual assistant do? Or more importantly, how can your virtual assistant or anybody at your front desk actually describe what it is you do? And can they describe that at a third grade level? You know, Many times you as the doc, you're very good at being a medical professional. You can talk about what you do all day, you can talk about it at a high level, but you can't distill that information down to a third grade level where it's very simple and easy for somebody to understand. And if you can do that for your virtual assistant and now they go to talk to the patient, that makes their life so much easier, right? And being able to get that info clearly articulated is what's going to make your patient not feel as confused. And when your patient isn't confused, that's what really moves the needle for anyone inside of your practice, right? Whether they're virtual or in person. And so to say a virtual admin can't be trusted really comes down to you being able to give them the tools to be successful. And one of the main ways we do this is we make anybody who is going to work with us clearly outline their processes that they want their virtual admin to go through, whether it's their new patient flow or whether it's their communicating with patients, whatever it might be, all of that stuff has to be clearly documented. Now, this is how you build trust in a virtual assistant. The other way that you can do that And the number two thing that you really want to think about with virtual assistants versus in person is where an actual in person admin may hurt your practice in the early stages or just in general. I think the in-person admin is the most traditional way to go. They can be kind of the Swiss Army knife for you, right? They are doing customer experience. They are checking people in. They're checking people out. They're giving them, the whole experience. But what happens, or where this process may break down, is your front desk starts to wear too many hats. They're calling patients. They're following up with leads. They're calling people who fell off the schedule. They are greeting new patients as they walk in. They're collecting payment. And now this person is being interrupted every freaking minute of the day. And they lack the ability to actually sit and focus as opposed to just sitting and calling leads, right? And so now you're paying all this money for ads and leads, but these leads are falling through the cracks, right? Because they're not being called within 5 minutes. They're too busy doing something else, or they're on the phone trying to close a new lead. But ultimately, what happens is now, I've got a new patient walking in at the same time, and I create this awkward piece, and now my conversation's rushed, and I'm not going through the process like I need to be able to do. And when that rushed feeling starts to happen, new leads are slipping through the cracks. And so now you have to spend more money on marketing to actually grow. Or, hey, follow-ups start to slip because, the schedule is really busy, and then your revenue starts to tank, and you start to panic, and they freak out, and they start working really hard to get more people in the door as well. And so this is where that traditional setup can be kind of tough, right? Because we have all of these things going on. They're wearing way too many hats at this point, and that's certainly what we don't want to be happening at the front desk. I need somebody who's locked in, basically ready to go. And so the third and final piece of this is like, how do you actually create trust and understanding, right? Whether it's you having a virtual admin or whether it's you having an in-person admin, you really just need somebody who can lock in and make things happen. And this is where I really do love having a virtual admin, because when you have somebody who just sits and locks in only on new leads, and so maybe your practice has grown, maybe you finally gotten busy enough, being able to actually sit and just focus on new leads really moves the needle. I mean, this is exactly what we do in our practice is we have somebody who is head of lead flow. Their only job, their only mission is to call new leads, get these people in the door, and absolutely crush it for us. And that's what allows us to profitably spend money on Facebook ads every single month and be able to grow our practice. And that's because I have a virtual person making all of our phone calls. And it isn't that my virtual person's any better than my in-person admin. It's just that they are locked in on one job. And that's what you need to have happen inside your practice. And for some of you guys, you're really early on, your practice is really young, and you can get by with doing the customer experience, and a virtual admin can really anchor all of your new patient calls and new patient flow. And this is where growth actually happens. And now you can afford to even hire somebody in person to be able to handle the customer experience and those kind of things. So if you've been telling yourself, hey, I can't hire a virtual assistant because they're just not going to understand my practice, I really would encourage you to rethink that, because the real question isn't who or where your front desk is. It's whether or not you actually have focus and systems and clear expectations for them as they are sitting at your front desk. And so it's not that proximity does this, it's you documenting this stuff on the front end and giving them one job that's actually going to make them successful. So, if this sounds interesting to you, we actually have a team of virtual assistants that we could place into your practice. All you have to do is book a call with us. We've got this team ready to go. Usually, we can get them placed inside your practice within 7 days. And if you're unsure if virtual even makes sense for you, let's hop on a phone call and see if it does make sense. We'll see you inside the next.